Tonight on BBC London.
Lock the bailout! Lock the bailout!
Campaigners protest against Thames Water's plans for its future, with price increases for customers to tackle its towering debt.
We think it's not on, in a cost of living crisis, that ordinary people who are struggling to heat their homes, struggling to pay their bills, should be expected to foot the bill.
Thames Water says it's taking necessary next steps to stabilise the business. Also on the programme, a jury hears 15-year-old Elian Andam was stabbed by a teenager in a fit of white-hot anger. He denies murder. We'll have the latest from the Old Bailey. M&S gets the green light to demolish and rebuild its flagship store. What might it mean for Oxford Street and its shoppers?
And he may be 2 weeks early, but Father Christmas has swapped the North Pole for the River Thames as he cheers up children before Christmas.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. Thames Water is the UK's biggest water company, with 1 in 4 people relying on the firm for their supply. It's saddled with debts which it's admitted will swell to nearly £18 billion next March. And to pay for the cost of a temporary bailout, protesters say the company plans to increase customer bills by around £250 a year, something Thames Water denies. Today, a protest was held in central London. It comes ahead of High Court proceedings to decide Thames Water's future. Anna O'Neill has the story.
Lock the bailout! Lock the bailout!
Thames Water needs billions of pounds to keep it afloat, and that could mean more money leaking out of customers' pockets.
Basically, this deal is for £3 billion of cash right now that will be charged at a whopping 10% interest. And what does that mean in kind of brass tacks? That's £250 a year from every household in the Thames Water region. We don't think that households should have to pay to bail out Thames Water.
In September, the Water Special Measures Bill gave new powers to take action on companies failing their customers and the environment. These open water swimmers agree the Thames needs cleaning up.
Everything's covered in sewage, fungus in the water. You can't now see the bottom at all. When 2 years ago you used to be able to see the bottom, you used to see fish, you'd see all the invertebrates and things living in the bottom, and now it's a turbid dead mass. I mean, it's really sad.
But the bill also means that when one company fails, all water companies are made responsible, and campaigners fear consumers will end up paying more.
And we think it's not on, in a cost of living crisis, that ordinary people who are struggling to heat their homes, struggling to pay their bills, should be expected to foot the bill to clean up after the party of the last 35 years of privatisation.
The Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs denied that bills would rise and told us,
"The bill is placing water companies under special measures and strengthening regulation, with new powers to ban the payment of bonuses and criminal charges against persistent lawbreakers."
These protesters aren't convinced.
My bill at the moment is around £320. With all of these extra added on top requests for extra funding, requests for bailouts, it's going to take my bill up to around about £800. That's a huge rise in bills, and I have to say I would struggle to pay it.
Thames Water said the extra investment it needs won't change how much customers will have to pay.
This is an interim funding solution as we work through necessary next steps to stabilise the business further, with a view to delivering an investable and financeable business plan.
Campaigners want to see Thames Water permanently renationalised, but so far the government has ruled that out.
90% of the world runs water in public ownership, and we have powers to do this in a really cheap way in Britain. Tony Blair used the power of special administration to take privatised rail tracks and bring it into public ownership on the cheap. We can do the same with Thames Water. That's what we need to protect bill payers.
Thames will seek High Court approval for a £3 billion emergency financing deal to keep it alive on the 17th of September. Anna O'Neill, BBC London.
Lots more to come tonight, including we assess the future of M&S's flagship store on Oxford Street as it's set to be demolished and rebuilt. And a love for scissors. We meet the Londoner going viral on social media with her unusual collection. Well, now, on the fatal stabbing of the schoolgirl Eliane Andam, a court's heard how she was attacked after she tried to stand up for her friend who'd wanted to get her teddy back from her ex-boyfriend. Our Home Affairs correspondent Sonia Jessup has been following the case at the Old Bailey. Sonia, first of all, what have you been hearing today?
Well, at the opening of the trial today, the court heard how Hassan Sentimi, who was 17 at the time of the attack, had killed Eliane in Croydon in September last year. And they heard how he'd met up with Eliane and a group of girls, including his ex-girlfriend, that morning. And the plan was to exchange their belongings because Eliane's friend had been particularly worried about getting back her teddy bear. But the court heard that although Eliane's friend kept her side of that agreement, Hassan had turned up empty-handed, and that to grieve for her friend, Eliane had seized the bag back from Hassan, and this, the prosecution alleged, was a gesture of solidarity that cost Eliane her life, because they alleged that Hassan then had stabbed her in a fit of white-hot anger because he saw it as disrespect from the girls. The court also heard that the girls and Hassan had met the previous afternoon and the girls had teased him and thrown water over him.
And Hassan Sentimi has admitted killing her but denied murder.
That's right. There's no dispute that Hassan killed Eliane. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter at an earlier hearing, but he denies murder. And this is on the basis of diminished responsibility. The court heard that he was diagnosed with autism 4 years ago. He also denies having a blade. He says that he has a lawful reason for doing so. The court also heard today from a bus passenger who tried to help Eliane, that he tried to give her first aid, and he described how he said that I'd be here, he said, and everything would be okay. I won't leave your side. The trial continues.
Okay, Sonia at the Old Bailey, thanks very much indeed. Next, a BBC investigation has found significant misuse of powers of attorney, which gives someone legal authority to act on another's behalf. Clients of an Essex firm, Craybeck Law, have described losing control of their property and money with little or no record of how it was spent. In a moment, we'll speak to BBC reporter Sue Mitchell. But first, here she is talking to one of the firm's clients, Petra. She was introduced to Craybeck's director, Ron Hiller, by an NHS social worker who'd brought him to her house during a professional visit.
He kept badgering me.
Badgering you?
He kept saying, you know, if I have the power of your attorney, you won't have to worry about anything. And, he said, I'll look after everything for you. And then after that, I thought to myself, where's this money going? That's not the first thing I thought about, but it was later on. And so I said no. And I said, I can't remember.
Well, originally you did sign it, so you did sign it then and there. When he first came, you signed it. Do you remember?
Yes,
you did sign it.
I signed. And because of all the badgering.
You felt you should sign it, did you?
No, I just wanted to get him out. You know, that's what I wanted. I wanted to get him out. And I signed it. And then
And your NHS social worker witnessed it, certified that you were
unfortunately, yes.
That you're capable of signing it.
Yes.
Well, Sue Mitchell, you've been investigating this. Tell us a bit more about what you found.
So I've looked into about 30 cases, all connected with Craybeck Law, and particularly Ron Hiller, who's a partner at Craybeck Law. I started really the investigation because neighbours, friends and relatives have been approaching us on the back of a different story I'd done about power of attorney, and they were deeply worried about what was happening to their loved ones. We heard about Carol. That was it's the first case in the series, actually. She's in her mid-60s, and she was effectively recovering in a care home after a fall at home. She'd been in hospital. Her neighbours were really worried. They hadn't sort of heard from her. When we tracked down Carol in the care home, we found she had no access to her bank account. She signed a power of attorney with Ron Hiller. He'd been introduced to her in the care home. She signed this power of attorney and she'd really lost control of her finances. He'd cleared and sold her property, and she had no real understanding of where the money was. She'd received no invoices from him. She had no bank card, no passport, nothing to verify her ID, were she to want to go into a bank and try and find out what was happening. So she effectively felt stranded, really, and just left there at the hands of this power of attorney.
So how has the firm or Ron Hiller been finding clients?
Well, that's interesting. So what we've uncovered really is that there's a system, there seems to be a system where NHS social workers have been taking him into the homes of very vulnerable people and introducing him into their lives. You heard Petra there talking about how she felt sort of under pressure to sign this power of attorney. Her NHS social worker has taken Ron Hiller to many homes, ostensibly introducing him for the benefit of her clients, saying, you know, he'll sort your finances out. These people are very vulnerable, and the power of attorney that's being registered is then sort of putting them in position of having these patterns where their finances are then taken out of their control. They don't feel in control of their lives, and they're worried about what's happening. So, and the other main place I think that he's meeting people is in care homes, where, again, people are very vulnerable. The National Care Association head, Nadra Ahmed, told us this should not be happening. Care home managers need to keep a really clear line between the power of attorney and introducing people into the lives of vulnerable people.
And have you been able to identify how big a problem this actually is?
Well, it's difficult, but the Office of the Public Guardian, which oversees the power of attorney system, they say there's about 8 million powers of attorney in England and Wales. Scotland has a different system, but of the powers of attorney that are registered, the difficulty is there's no clear process for investigating when someone has scores of these powers of attorney, as Mr. Hiller does. So there's no automatic investigative process to alert when these powers of attorney are revoked, like Petra revoked her power of attorney, as have some of the others that have dealt with Ron Hiller. But it doesn't seem that automatically triggers an investigation at the Office of the Public Guardian. And some MPs now are calling for change. There's been a first reading of Fabian Hamilton's bill calling for greater scrutiny on the parts of banks and the Office of the Public Guardian.
So have you heard anything from Crowback Law or
yes.
the NHS at all?
Yeah, so the NHS the Hertfordshire Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust, they told me that they've launched an internal investigation on the back of our findings, and they've involved the police in that. So they are taking action straight away. Craybeck Law, I put everything I'd found to Ron Hiller and Craybeck Law. The firm said it always acts in the best interest of its clients, that it's governed by Solicitors Regulation Authority rules and principles. They told us that they uphold strict conduct and ethical guidelines, and they have a process in place to ensure clients have the mental capacity to make decisions to appoint the firm, and they couldn't respond to individual claims, but that our allegations were inaccurate and based on hearsay.
Okay, Sue Mitchell, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, you can hear more of Sue's investigation in the podcast and Radio 4 series, The Willpower Detectives. It's available now on BBC Sounds. A look at some of the other stories making the news today. Police have identified a man murdered in West London as Nash Klein. 2 others were seriously injured during the disturbance in Acton on Sunday morning. Scotland Yard says there was a fight and possible shots were heard. Police are appealing for information. The congestion charge will be suspended over the festive period. There'll be no fees between Christmas Day and the 1st of January, but the ultra-low emission zone will operate as usual, with the exception of Christmas Day. West Ham United players will warm up in Michail Antonio shirts tonight ahead of their match against Wolverhampton Wanderers. West Ham striker Antonio remains in hospital following a serious road accident on Saturday afternoon. Now, people living in a block of flats which has the same type of cladding as the Grenfell Tower say they've not been told when the cladding will be removed, despite a major fire there. Almost 300 people have spent months in hotels and temporary accommodation after fire spread through the Mosaic apartments in Slough over the summer. Joe Campbell has the details.
Neighbours once more. Farhan Rashid is back home alongside friends who've also had to flee the fire here.
Even we are in the same situation, we need to unpack the things.
A bigger concern though is work removing flammable cladding from the Mosaic apartments still isn't complete.
They are removing now, but I don't know how long they're going to be take. I already spoken to worker as well. He said, don't know.
The building management company has put down some marshals. So those guys were roaming around the building all the nights, days, every time. They're keeping vigilance very good. So that we can. They are providing some assurance, saying we are keeping a close eye in the building.
Mark Dealey, who took these pictures of the blaze, says the cladding risk was well known before the fire.
There's a fire report from a couple of years ago, or a cladding report, which they put in their own words. The cladding on the roof is an unacceptable risk, which, again, that's something for another day legally.
Residents like Farhan say they've effectively moved into a building site, not the best place for young families. As he exits the lift, neighbour Ijaz is returning from the shops.
We need to repair and to clean this place. I don't know how they allow us to come back here. Even we don't have the top roof is even not safe. So we worried about us still.
Site owners Wallace Estates say they're working as quickly as possible, but the extent of the safety issues means that work is ongoing. Residents here have been told the next phase of the work on their building will involve specialist teams abseiling down the outside, and that as a result, all the balconies will have to be kept clear of any obstructions. That's due to get underway in around a week's time, but they've not been given a date for when the job will be completed. Joe Campbell, BBC London.
For nearly 4 years, a battle took place over the future of Marks & Spencer's flagship store at Marble Arch. The company wanted to demolish and rebuild it, but campaigners fought the plans for the Art Deco building on heritage grounds. The government stepped into the planning row, and last week permission was granted. The chief executive of M&S said the rebuild means the company could now get on with the job of helping to rejuvenate the UK's premier shopping street. So, will it? And what does it mean for shoppers? Lakshmi Gopal has more.
Marks & Spencer's flagship store at Marble Arch is part of Oxford Street's long history. Now, its future involves demolition and redevelopment into a modernised shop, cafe, offices and gym. To find out why, you need to look inside. Marks & Spencer says the site, comprised of 3 buildings of different ages and heights, isn't fit for purpose. This retail expert agrees. John, let's start with this. What do you make of this?
I mean, it's symptomatic of what goes on in much of the rest of the building. It's a hodgepodge of different styles, trying to fit a lot in to a very big space and not being quite clear about how you can do it because there's no symmetry to the building's interior, really.
What do you say to people who think it's a shame to lose that building and its history?
Well, a lot of people will say that, of course, and they're partially correct. But you can't preserve everything in aspect. And to be honest, if you look up and down Oxford Street, there's a wide variety of architectural styles.
But a heritage organisation thinks the facade deserves to be preserved.
The most standout feature are these Ionic capitals. That's the curly bits at the top of the columns, which are beautifully carved and very crisp. It gives it a sense of grandeur, of like a special building that you're coming to. For us, the primary loss is the history of the building and the stories that it embodies. But it's also a loss in terms of its environmental impact.
She argues just refurbishing it is less environmentally wasteful, but Marks & Spencer says the site is too complex for that and that redevelopment would enable a more sustainable building. The government's planning approval is an early Christmas present for Oxford Street, according to a company representing hundreds of businesses in the wider area.
This debate evokes strong feelings on both sides, and this application has been the subject of much of that debate for the last few years. I think what I would say is that it gives business some confidence, not just in the UK but globally, that this is a place where you can invest and actually invest in the future of not just retail but all sorts of different uses that will form the future of the West End.
Shoppers seem to be philosophical about it.
I think if it's really too old to be refurbished, then it might make sense to let it go.
Well, I have a lot of fond memories attached to it, so I will miss its originality. But yes, I'm looking forward to something new happening here. It does need a little makeover.
When it's completed, there's no date for it yet, it'll be the end of an era, but also hopefully protect the future of this historic shopping district. Lakshmi Gopal, BBC London.
Now, do you have an unusual hobby or collection? Well, meet the Londoner whose passion is so unique she's now gone viral. Sydney Harding loves scissors. She's been collecting them for more than a decade and now makes videos all about them, earning her millions of views on social media. Here's Sydney's story.
Hi, my name is Sydney, and if you don't know me, I collect scissors.
I first started collecting scissors properly when I was around 11. I would come home from school and empty out my blazers and just like whip out loads of scissors. Now I have around 400 pairs. In this box over here, I have all my grape scissors, which are stunning. One of the big things that draws me to scissors is the sensory experience of them. I mean, even just the sound of them. My favourite folding pairs are probably these. I got these at antique, like vintage market. And I love when they're either rusty or they've got some kind of break to them or anything, because it means that they've got a rich history. This looks like it's straight out of Lord of the Rings. If it looks like an elf would own it, then I need it. I think there's a lot of different scissors in my mind that I really wanted. And I figured I can't find them anywhere, why not make them? So I started doing a welding course. I just had so much fun. It was incredible. This is going to go in my room. That's just going to be this one, and then the smaller one is going to be underneath it. When I find a different style of scissors, I want to know everything about it. I've got a few books on scissors, and then I do my research online. Also, because I am autistic, I do have a lot of special interests and hyperfixations. Amassing more scissors is always just something that's never going to leave me. I think it's an ingrained habit in my mind now, and I will always collect.
Well, that's a first. Now, he's more used to speeding through the night sky at great speed, but today Santa swapped a sleigh for a boat. He took to the Thames to help deliver gifts to some of London's sickest children and spread a little joy in the process. Matt Graveling was lucky enough to be on board too.
From reindeers to rivers, Santa really knows how to make an entrance. Father Christmas, you've only got 2 weeks to go. What are you doing here in London?
We've got to get some presents for the really sick children at St Thomas's Hospital.
Oh, you're used to reindeers. How are your sea legs?
Not very good, I'm afraid. I'm feeling a bit wheezy and a bit cheesy tonight.
But that wasn't going to stop Santa from a tour of the Thames, because waiting on board were special passengers from the Evelina London Children's Hospital.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas! Can I have a present?
One of my kidneys don't work, and I got a new one. I had to do dialysis. I started off doing 3 days, then I used to do 4.
It's a lot. It's very special to know that they've been through so much and to have them on a day out, like just enjoying the scenery, you know, most of the time in the hospital. So it's nice for a different background and seeing what's happening on the outside.
But before a gift could be given, Santa was making a list and checking it twice.
No, you haven't been naughty, so you can get a present now. Merry Christmas.
It's about bringing people onto the river. You know, the Evelina Hospital is right by the river, and how lovely for them to come out at Christmas onto the River Thames.
This is a warm-up gig then, really, for Christmas Day.
Absolutely. This is very much Santa in practice for a few days' time.
I hear you've been ever so good.
Yeah.
How good have you been?
Really good.
Really good.
He found out this morning on the way up here that he was going on a boat and he was meeting Father Christmas. So it was nice to see that surprise, sort of seeing them all out of the hospital environment, you know, having fun. That's what it's all about.
The present had some Lego in, and it was a Lego creation camera,
Wow.
which I really want to build when I get home.
So, as today's Thames tourists took in sights including the City and the London Eye, the party continued, and so did the gifts.
Oh, I got building blocks.
Oh, really?
But what about the one question on everyone's mind?
Are you the real Santa?
Well, the answer to that could be the best Christmas gift ever. Matt Graveling, BBC London.
Well, this Christmas, many Londoners will be going above and beyond to make a difference to people less fortunate. We'd love to hear about them. You can scan the QR code now to message us on WhatsApp, or you can email hello@bbclondon@bbc.co.uk and let us know about the people where you live that are making a special difference in your communities over Christmas. On that note, let's get a check on the weather. And Kate Kinsella's here. Hi, Kate.
Hello, Victoria. Hello, good evening. Well, it's not especially festive, the weather, but of course, over the weekend, Storm Dara brought wet and very windy conditions. That has now cleared down into the continent, but it has left us with a fairly chilly northeasterly breeze. Now, this was earlier on this morning. A little bit of blue sky. Won't see that for a while, I'm afraid. A little bit of sunshine as we have a lot of cloud feeding in. What Storm Dara has become is a low pressure system in the continent, and feeding around the outside are these showers and quite gloomy conditions. There's a lot of cloud around, not only for today, but for the next few days as well. But I'm pleased to say it is fairly settled as high pressure is building. Now, the wind, you can still see it's a northeasterly driving these showers through. The wind feels really cold. Overnight tonight, temperatures between 5 and 7 doesn't look too bad numbers wise, but with the wind, it's probably going to feel a lot colder, closer to 0 out in the outskirts, around 2 to 5 Celsius. Now, for tomorrow, I said high pressure was building. It is, but you can see in the southeast, the isobars fairly close together, so it's still going to be quite windy. We've still got that northeasterly breeze blowing through, still feeding in some showers, but those showers tomorrow should start to fade, becoming fewer and further between down in the southeast. It's still going to be cloudy though, I'm afraid, and that wind is still going to feel cold. Temperatures tomorrow 8 Celsius, feeling more like 5 in central London. Now, as we head through to Tuesday night, still rather cloudy. We've still got a few showers around, and nothing really changes temperature-wise, but also cloud-wise. It's just going to stay rather gloomy through much of this week. Wednesday morning, 4 to 6 Celsius, still feeling cold. High pressure still with us, but by Wednesday, finally, those isobars start to slacken and the wind gradually starts to fall a bit lighter. I'm afraid, though, we still have the cloud. Victoria.
Oh dear. OK, Kate, thank you. And that's about it from me. On our website, you can read about the new homes planned for former Brentford FC Stadium site. That's bbc.co.uk/London. We'll be back later with our 10:30 programme. For now, from all of us here, do have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.